It's 8:17 on RM Breakfast. Our guest this morning is former Prime Minister John Howard. He's published his memoirs, his autobiography, called Lazarus Rising. Now, I'm sure it hasn't escaped your attention that Peter Costello has written a scathing comment about your autobiography today. Do you take offence at that? I know you've read it. Do you take offence?
No.
Well, he effectively calls you a liar, doesn't he?
Well, that's your interpretation. Look, I don't want to revisit his view and my view about whether I should have retired and who said what then. That's been done to death. He dealt with it extensively in his memoir. I've dealt with it extensively. I had to address it. People who suggest that I could have avoided the leadership issue in the autobiography are being rather naive. You can't write a full autobiography without talking about this. It was an issue. It's one chapter in 46. The only observation I'd make about Peter's column this morning is his claim that I didn't want to share the glory with anybody. If he's read the autobiography, he will find it's replete with praise for other people, starting with him. I do describe him as Australia's best ever treasurer. I said he combined a fine intellect with great rhetorical skills, that he could be uproariously funny. He frequently lifted our spirits in the House. I said that the work he did on the GST was outstanding. I said in a chapter entitled The Wonder Down Under, which talks about our economic management, that the foundation of that successful management was the partnership between Peter and me. And can I also, while I'm on this subject, because this is sort of, this is substance, I also was full of praise of John Anderson. Everybody knows the praise I heaped on Peter Reith and Alexander Downer. I was very complimentary about Malcolm Turnbull's communicative skills in relation to environmental issues. I talked about the technical mastery Kevin Andrews had over the work choices legislation, and there are other examples. So I do, politely and gently make the comment that any claim that I claimed all of the glory and claimed all of the credit for the government's achievements is palpably wrong.
Perhaps he was offended by the bits when you said he wasn't a good listener and he was too elitist when it came to the
but that's
views
let's deal with the point I'm simply making, Fran, is that I always regarded our achievements as a team achievement.
Sure.
And I was very ready to praise people and principally, but not only him.
Well, in fact, on the leadership, you say in the book that Peter Costello would have done the job well.
Yes.
If you knew he would have done the job well, and you'd already figured out with your wife Jeanette that the optimum time for you to quit was Christmas 2006, any decision by you not to hand over then, no matter the reason, was surely a triumph of your interests over the interests of your party.
No. Well, the party overwhelmingly wanted me to stay.
Yes, but you knew, by having made the decision to yourself that Christmas 2006 was the best time
Fran,
for you. You knew what was in the best interest.
I don't really want to retread what I've said ad nauseum, that the circumstances that arose in 2006 meant that a departure then would have been seen as reacting to a suggestion that I'd behaved in a dishonourable fashion some years earlier. I've been over all, and look, there is really nothing. I respect. Look, can I just say this? I understand Peter's feelings. I know what his ambition was, and it was a noble ambition, and it was an ambition that I had. I understand all of that, and he's given his version, and I've tried in my autobiography to give mine. And apart from making the point, which I repeat, that I never sought to hog all the glory, I was always ready to give credit to other colleagues. It was always a team effort. I really don't see any point in just repeating ad nauseum this debate about 2006. The party, I think Alexander Downer put it quite well the other day when he said that what arose here was a collision between the overwhelming view of the party in 2006, particularly after the so-called McLaughlin incident, that I should stay, and Peter's own ambition, which, can I say, was very, very understandable.
At the risk of weighing into the regret field again, two questions. Do you regret that Peter Costello never took over the leadership, and do you regret that part of your legacy now in the Liberal Party will be as the bloke who stayed too long?
Well, that's always understandable. The bloke that stayed too long it's always there if you get defeated. But I mean, there's only been one Prime Minister in Australian history that really retired of his own volition at his own time, and that was Bob Menzies. And there were particular circumstances. Maybe we all would have lasted longer if we'd have had a DLP in
on
2007.
I think a lot of people going to your autobiography will be really keen to hear you talk about the impact on you of losing not just the Prime Ministership in government, but losing Bennelong after 33 years, because it must have been shattering. But you don't reveal much or share much with the readers about the pain of that defeat. Why not?
Well, because I was disappointed, but I was not shattered. I mean, I'd had a very long and successful political life. And Bennelong by 2007 had become a marginal seat. I mean, people who know the political geography of Sydney will understand that a seat that started off at Wollstonecraft and in the end had shifted westward and had lost seats that areas that habitually voted Liberal will know how to change. And it was won back. I mean, Maxine McHugh defeated me. And then she was defeated by Alexander in just a few weeks ago.
Before I let you go, can I get your views on a couple of current issues? As a former Prime Minister, this proposed merger or takeover of the Australian Stock Exchange by Singapore, do you have a view on that?
Oh, look, I think I ought to leave the specifics of that to my Liberal colleagues, apart from stating my long understood support for an open approach to foreign investment. But I think the current cast of foreign investment policy, which is essentially right, should be applied, and that obviously involves judgments being made by the government and the Treasurer. But I'll leave it to Tony and the boys and girls to respond to that. I don't think it's fair for me to weigh in that micro sense. Well,
let's talk about how the boys and girls are going in your terms. Julia Gillard is currently taunting Tony Abbott and his team for preaching what she called Hanson economics. Are you disappointed at some of the economic noises coming from the opposition around the banks and the levers, using levers with the banks and, the dollar?
I don't hear anybody calling for a re-regulation of interest rates or that we should try and go back to a controlled exchange rate. I don't hear any of that. I don't. I mean, those things were settled 25 years ago. We're not going back to controlled interest rates. You can't anyway. You can't control interest rates. I mean, I deal with this issue in the book way back in the Fraser government days. I mean, it's a ludicrous proposition, and with a still relatively small economy, which is quite open, in a globalised world, the idea that you could go back to a controlled exchange rate is is equally ridiculous. So I think this economic Hansonism is the latest sort of try on by the Labor Party. I mean, what political parties from time to time do, they think, well, let's run this line and see whether it gets any traction. And that's what Julia Gillard's doing. I mean, just remember that when the Labor Party was in opposition, when we were in government, they opposed every darn economic reform we put up. Unlike when we were in opposition against Hawke and Keating, we used to support things that were in the national interest. Hawke would never have cut tariffs the way he did without the knowledge that he would have the support of the opposition.
John Howard, just finally, it's clear from the book and all the interviews you've been giving since that you're still very engaged in politics. There's even a chapter in the book dealing with politics after you left in your own autobiography. I guess from that you miss it. But what's the best thing about not being Prime Minister anymore?
Well, the answer to that is, Fran, I do miss it. I liked doing the job, of course. But I've adjusted. I've accepted that I'm no longer in it. And what's the best part? I suppose you have a little more flexibility. You can take your pick about what you do, which you couldn't when you were in politics. But I mean, I was stimulated by political life, and I don't regret having embraced it as a profession, as a career commitment. I don't regret any of that. I mean, I was very grateful for what opportunities came my way in politics, and I'll always be intensely grateful to the Liberal Party for the opportunities that he gave me. I mean, I owe all of my political success originally to the fact that the Liberal Party chose me as the candidate for Bennelong, and I think some people, as years go by, they tend to forget their party roots, it's fashionable to dump on political parties. Well, I don't think it's either fashionable or honourable to dump on the political party that gave you an opportunity. And for all its faults, the Liberal Party is very important to me.
John Howard, thank you very much for joining us again on Breakfast.
Thank you.
Former Prime Minister John Howard, and his autobiography Lazarus Rising is out now, published by HarperCollins. It's 27 past 8.
As Artamu traditional owners celebrate the 25th anniversary.
Just like old times.
Good to see you,
Thank
friend.
you very much.